Opinion Speech, Not Knowledge News. I'm your host, Brother Rod, aka O Priest King. I want to say thank you for choosing this program where we're about to continue our study.
Moses commands or calls for obedience. Deuteronomy chapter 4, starting at verse 1. Now, when we're looking at the book of Deuteronomy, a lot of people look at the commandments and compare the two. And a lot of individuals say, well, the commandments from the book of Deuteronomy do not read the same as the commandments from the book of Exodus. And in my understanding, I believe one is explaining the commandments more in depth to the house of Israel. Listen, to the house of Israel, hearken, O Israel. It does not say hearken, O world. It does not say hearken everybody on the face of the earth, even though that the scriptures must go out to everybody on the face of the earth, because the house of Israel is scattered amongst all people on the face of the earth. And in order to reach the house of Israel today, you also must bring the scriptures to the whole face of the earth, because the whole house of Israel is scattered among all nations. All nations. So we want to read the book of Deuteronomy. We want to hear Moses explain the journey. We want to hear Moses explain the situation that the people is in, that the house of Israel is in, the people is in, and why God has chose this people, has elected this people, and what is the result of following the commandments. Moses commands obedience to what? The statutes. Moses commands obedience to what? The judgments, which Moses teaches the house of Israel, the people. But let's read. Let me put my pointer down here. Let's read also from the scriptures, and for those who study with us, and when you study with us, you also, some people order a copy of the Bible that we use. And for those who are following us, we're on page 87, beginning at the book of Exodus chapter 20. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. I should have this up on the screen for you, huh? When a lot of us, before we continue, what is the Ten Commandments to you? Does the Ten Commandments start off with the book of Exodus? We're reading chapter 20 at verse 2. Do you consider this the start of the commandments? I am the Lord thy God. Or do you consider the start of the commandments as thou shalt have no other gods? A lot of us, when we go to these stores and we decide to buy the writing of the Ten Commandments, do you know that a lot of the Ten Commandments only starts off with thou shalt not? It never starts off with I am the Lord, I am Yahweh, not just any God. I am the Lord, your God. You shall have no other gods before me. But let's continue to read. The book of Exodus, page 87, out of the Bible that we use on this study program, which is the King James Bible, giant print edition. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. That's verse 4. Or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Is that part of the commandments? Do you see that in the commandments when you go to your local shops and they decide to sell you the Ten Commandments? Do you see the entire verse 4? Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. Do you hear and read in the book of Exodus chapter 20 where that we hear the word thou shalt not? I want us to keep this in mind as we go through the book of Deuteronomy and we listen for the words thou shalt not. Okay, because we are listening for the commandments. One of the reasons why this study is also a great study is because we hear, we try to interpret, we decide to debate if Christ destroyed the law. A lot of people say, well, we don't use the term destroy, but when men no longer need to follow the statutes, the judgments, which Moses was instructed to teach the house of Israel, hearken unto the statutes, Moses said. Hearken, O Israel, unto the judgments, Moses said. Verse 5 of the book of Exodus, chapter 20. Thou shalt not bow thyself, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord, thy God, am a jealous God. What do you understand about the word jealous? When you see this and people say, well, why is God jealous? When you understand and define that word, do you see I am a demanding God? Or do you see I am a jealous God, as in I cannot control my emotions? See, as in jealousy, okay? Or do you see as in the God who is demanding? The book of Exodus, chapter 20, at verse 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy works. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maid servants, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And all the people saw the thundering and the lightning and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, the people, the house of Israel, hearken, O Israel. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 19. I just want to throw this out here. This is how we get the prophets whom God spoke to then speak to the people. And when we read the book of Deuteronomy, it's going to bring us back to this. Okay? Just listen. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. How do the people get consumed? The moment that they hear the voice of God. Verse 20, and Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your face, that ye sin not, that you sin not. What sin? Transgress the laws of God, that you transgress the laws of God not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel. Who was Moses speaking to in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, at verse 22? And the Lord and the Most High God said unto Moses, whom we are in this study, the book of Deuteronomy, Moses commands obedience, at the book of Exodus, chapter 20, at verse 22, and the Lord said unto Moses, thou shalt say, this is a commandment to Moses, shall say unto the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Page 88 now. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth shalt thou make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, thy sheep and thy ox. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewed stone. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by the steps unto my altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. Here we have read the book of Exodus, chapter 20. And the book of Exodus, chapter 20, starting at verse 1, ending at verse 26. We hear the commands that was given unto Moses to give unto the people. We hear that God himself, that he has made Israel to hear his voice. Now that we have read the book of Exodus chapter 20, if you would like, you can leave a comment, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit the notification button, so we may get this study out to as many as we can. So now let's look into the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 at verse 1.
What a program that we just got finished watching. I tell you, this was one of those exciting ones. This was one of those programs that had you at the edge of your seats. This was one of those programs that had you where you had to have your Bibles open. This was one of those programs, brothers and sisters, that might have left you with a question. This is one of those programs that might have also gave you some answers. This is one of those programs where that you might sit back and say, wait a minute, is this the end? Is this it? They just stopped it right here. But let me tell you, that's not it. This is Bible Study 001. I want to tell you to stay tuned for the next program that's coming up. I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to like it. I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to love it. I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to want to study with reading speech, not knowledge news. Until next time.
Operation Life Ministry would like to first thank you for carefully selecting and participating in one of the most becoming podcast shows anywhere you can hear and view a podcast. On this podcast, we read verses of the scripture and engage in conversation that lead to study, not to give rise to public disagreement. Operation Life Ministry is not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any Israelite groups or cults or alternative religions or any New Age movements. Operation Life Ministry, root in speech, not in knowledge news, and the newly acquired show, Yes, Maybe, No, are all hosted by Brother Chief, and we are a non-violent, Bible-based talk show podcast. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race of people, the tongues of ethnicity or genders. We advise that any who hears of any plots that can and will cause harm to any person or persons or break the law of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat, as stated in Leviticus chapter 5 verse 1. And if a soul sin, and hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness, whether he hath seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. On every podcast, an episode of Yes Maybe No, we are asking the big questions, and asking, if you the listener and viewer agree. Yes, by all means. Maybe, perhaps, possibly. No, absolutely not. Leave a comment if you will. Share if you will.